Hi guys, and welcome to Escape We Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be reviewing the new Spinnaker Fleuss 40. I received this watch for free. I don't have to send the watch back, which you guys know the deal by now. No matter how I get a watch in on this channel, I'm going to review it honestly every single time, and you'll see that at the end of this review. If by the end of this review you do want to pick one of these up, I'll be leaving a link down in the video description. That takes you right to the Spinnaker website, and you can place your order. The retail price for this watch is $450 US. That's before any taxes or customs or duties or anything like that. It does include shipping though, so that's nice. These are limited editions with 600 being produced. I'm not sure if that's 600 total units through all the colors or if that's 600 of each colorway, but either way, I think you're going to have to act pretty quickly. So the watch comes in 4 different colorways that you can see here, and they are all pretty vintage inspired colorways, very kind of muted, and definitely not your run-of-the-mill colors like black and blue. So really interesting colorways. The watch case is made of 316L stainless steel. It has a sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, has a screw-down crown, a screw-down caseback, 150 meters of claimed water resistance, and the watch is powered by the myiota 9039 high-beat automatic movement. So I did some digging before I did this. I looked through micro brands using the myiota 9000 series movements, and for a diver on a bracelet, you're looking at anywhere between like 500 to 650 or even more. So I looked at brands Laurier, Phoebus, Boulder, NTH, Wise, Zelos, and others. They all came slotted above this when it came to the price. Well, I'm here to tell you why that is, and did they make the right call cutting the corners that they cut. So I say we dig in and let's get into the full review. But before we do, let's do a quick wrist check. Today, I am wearing the Laurier Hyperion. I absolutely love this watch. I had it for sale. I'm still not sure if I want to sell it. I just like it too much. All right, first things first, the dimensions. Got a case diameter of 40 millimeters, 11.2 millimeters thick, 20 millimeter lug width, got a lug to lug of 47.1 millimeters. And sized up for my 7.5-inch wrist with 2 links removed. It weighs 126 grams. So if you guys aren't aware, Spinnaker, they do have a Fleuss model. I do really like that one. However, that one's 43 millimeters by like 50 millimeters. It's a big chunky watch. This is a more manageable size for more wrists. 40 millimeters, just over 11 millimeters thick, and that's to the top hat sapphire crystal there. I mean, this thing is just, it just wears perfect. It wears really, really good, very comfortable. It's not overly heavy either. So yeah, I think they just nailed it. They picked the right case for this thing. So I'm going to go outside right now and throw it on my wrist for you. And here we are on my 7.5-inch wrist. And as you can see, I feel like it wears great. It does look really good. You got nice turn down to the lugs there. Good thickness as well. It feels very balanced on wrist, and I just think the dimensions are pretty much spot on, and they're going to be good for a ton of wrist sizes. So yeah, I think they really made a good choice when they decided to go with the 40 millimeter case as opposed to the older 43 millimeter. So really, really happy with the way this thing wears. I love all the light play off the bezel, off of the crystal, the bracelet as well. It all just works for me. And popping out in some direct sunlight there, you can see more of that green colorway there. The crystal has plenty of air coating. It does get a little bit washed out here, but in day-to-day use, it's not an issue at all. But it just, I mean, I just really like the way that this watch looks on wrist and wears on wrist. It's super, super comfortable. All right, let's go throw it on some straps because this thing is kind of a strap monster. And here we are on the included Tropic strap, which I think matches the dial perfectly as it should. Nice and comfortable as well. We'll talk about it here in a little bit, but yeah, I think that does look pretty darn good. I think we might be able to do better though. And here we are on my favorite, just smooth FKM strap. This thing looks awesome on this watch. This is how I've been wearing it mostly. Again, it matches pretty much perfectly to the dial, and it's just a really nice option. I have this also in a bunch of other colors, and they all kind of look good with this watch. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with how well this matches with other watches. And here we are on another cut to size FKM strap. This one's got a little bit of texture to it, similar to the first strap that I showed you. But that khaki color just matches those indices perfectly. Even my wife likes this combo. So yeah, I'm really happy with this. I think it just looks awesome. And lastly, here we are on a nylon strap with 2 layers underneath it, thickness, keeping it in check. It does not wear top heavy on the strap at all. Very comfortable, and I think obviously the khaki goes great with those indices and just the color scheme in general. I think it looks pretty good. Alright, what do you guys think? Let's go back inside and let's get back to this review. Alright, so let's talk about the case on this thing. So the case is fully brushed. There's not a polished surface on the case itself that I can see. You have a vertical brushing on the tops of the lugs. Really nicely done. And it does integrate beautifully with the bracelet too. You get some decent little turn down little hook to the lugs there. Everything down here is nice and smooth. You have a vertical brushing on the sides of the case there. I'm not usually a fan of vertical brushing, but I think because it's broken up by this little section of the case here, it doesn't look too bad. Flipping it over to the crown side here, we have a 6.5mm signed screw down crown. It is a fully polished crown, as you can see there, but nice signage. I like their branding. I like their logo. Everything here is, again, just done very nicely. I've got no real complaints with the case finishing on this thing. I wouldn't say it's the highest of quality, but it's definitely acceptable and actually pretty good on the faces that you see mostly. So these top lug surfaces are very nicely done. Flipping over to the case back here, you can see it's a screw down case back, simple notches there to get a tool in, circular brushing with the Spinnaker Fleuss limited edition. It does have, this one is 000 out of 000. I'm assuming these are going to be individually numbered. And like I said, 600 of these are going to be produced. I'm not sure if that's per color or total. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. But you do have just a simple spec sheet around the outside. It's not a fancy case back or anything like that. I kind of wish they would show off the myiota 9000. It's a pretty decent looking movement, so but I'm okay with a solid case back as well. You have circular brushing on the bottom of the lugs. Not looking too great, but you never see it, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, the case on this thing is done pretty good. I wouldn't say it's super high quality, but it is definitely acceptable, especially for the price compared to all the other ones. All right, so let's talk about the bezel on this thing. So first off, the bezel insert, kind of right in your face. It is a beautiful bezel insert. I love glass bezel inserts. They look fantastic. They have that kind of dome shape to them, as you can see there. It gives you a little bit of a 3D effect. Not too much on this one, but it looks great. On this model, it is a light gray color, and then you have the faux patina all around. All those markings, those are loomed, which is nice to see, and then you have the minute markings for up to 15 minutes, so a pretty standard layout for the markings on it. That is a mineral bezel insert. It's not a sapphire bezel insert, so that's something that I did test. And yeah, a little bit disappointed that that's not sapphire. That's going to get scratched. That is a place where they cut the corners, and I'm not too happy about that. I'm wondering what the cost difference would be if that was actually sapphire. But the bezel itself, as you can see here, fully brushed as well. There's no polishing on the bezel. Plenty of grip too. It looks good. The resistance is pretty good. The alignment is spot on. And yeah, I mean, it's a nice bezel. It doesn't sound particularly good, but it does feel pretty good. The clicks, it's a 120 click unidirectional bezel, and it is completely solid. There's no play in the bezel in any direction at all. So pretty happy in that regard. Once you listen to the clicks here. So they are pretty audible, and they do have kind of a different tone depending on how fast you're spinning it. The faster you spin it, the worse it sounds. When you're spinning it slow like this, you can kind of hear that they have a different sound to each click. So it's an interesting bezel, but overall pretty happy with it. Now that I'm playing with it here, the resistance is pretty high, but I won't say that it's a deal breaker. So yeah, other than that, I think the bezel and bezel insert on this thing, it looks fantastic and it's functional. Yeah, it's a pretty good bezel. All right, so let's talk about the crystal. Tested for sapphire. You can see it is positive for sapphire. And it's a really nice sapphire crystal. It's a box dome. There is some blue anti-reflective coating, which isn't too in your face. I think it looks good on this. It doesn't distract from the green color or anything like that. It's a really nice crystal, though. Very flat on the top surface there. You get no distortion at the extreme angles here, except right at the edge of the crystal, which is exactly what you want. The dome doesn't really hinder or intrude on the dial indices or anything like that. So I'm really happy with the crystal on this thing. It looks fantastic. All right, so let's talk about the dial on this thing. And the dial is absolutely awesome. It's a matte finish on all the colors. And this one, it is a kind of a muted foresty green. I mean, it just looks awesome. It goes with tons of straps. I was surprised at how much of a strap monster this thing was. The cream indices and hands, they are not overly done. Sometimes you get these watches and they're super orange. This one is just about right. I mean, it's just, it looks fantastic. It's a great vintage look to it. The indices, they are applied, as you can see here, and they're not a polished and they're not brushed. They're kind of almost like a bead blasted finish to them. They're really nicely done. They catch the light nicely. They just look very good. You can see everything looks to be aligned very good. You have your Spinnaker branding there at the 12 o'clock position that is applied and it is polished. Then you have the Fleuss automatic and then water resistance there in red. You also have the limited edition down here straddling the 6 o'clock marker. The handset that they use, it's a brushed handset, as you can see right there, so it catches the light nicely. It doesn't really fade away or disappear. It's really nicely done. It's a good size, good length. The second hand reaches out past the minute track, and it has that red tip on it, and it is loomed as well. The second hand is actually painted. It's not brushed like the other hands, as you can see here. It's a gray paint. I think it looks really good. The colorway on this, I think, just works for me. The other colors are a little bit, they just have stuff that I don't quite like. But this one here, the green with the gray and the red, I think it looks fantastic. Even the lume on this watch is pretty good. I'm going to pop up a lume shot here. You can see it against a couple other watches in the collection. And it does pretty good. I put the Willard at like a 7 as far as the lume goes, and this one hangs along just with that one. I was able to read it all night long. It's a pretty strong burst right off the bat, and then it does fade. You can see the bezel does fade before the dial does, but that's not a huge deal. And I was able to read this thing, like I said, in the middle of the night and into the morning, so I got no issues with the lume on this thing. All right, so talking about the movement in the crown here. So we have the Myiota 9039 high beat automatic movement. So it is the Myiota 9000 series, which is great. They're thin. It allows you to keep a dive watch like this at right above 11 millimeters. So really happy with the thickness of it. The movement 28,800 beats per hour. So it's got 8 ticks of the second hand every second. It hacks, it hand winds. It has a single directional winding rotor. So there are times where you can get the rotor spinning and you can see it and you can feel it and you can hear it. And so I'm not a huge fan of the Myiota 9000 just because of that. But if you guys aren't bothered really by the Myiota 9000's little quirks like that, these movements are fantastic, and I like them better than the Swiss Etaclones or anything like that. So they're accurate, they're very reliable, they're going to last forever. Here's how this one has been running. Yep, cannot complain at all about that. Really, really nice, very accurate, very happy with that. The movement is operated by this 3 o'clock screw down crown here. Again, nicely signed. So screw in and screw out action is really good. You get a nice satisfying pop out there when it disengages from the threads. You pull it out to the first position and it hacks the movement. So they're not using the 9015. They're using the 9039. It's just a 3-hand movement without a date. Everything functions exactly like you would expect it to. The screw in and screw out action is perfect. The threads pick up right away. I've got 0 complaints with the crown, 0 complaints with the movement really. All right, so let's talk about the bracelet on this thing. So the bracelet is 20 millimeters, like I mentioned, and it tapers down to 16 millimeters at the clasp. You can see here, it is a beads of rice. It is not a 7-link bracelet. These links here, they are all one piece. So that's one area where they cut corners. Does it really matter? I don't really think so. This bracelet was still very comfortable for me. The finishing on it looks good. I've got no complaints with the finishing. They did a nice job. The polishing looks good. The brushing looks good. The end link fitment, nice and tight. I've got no complaints with that, and it follows the case curvature just perfectly. So yeah, really happy with the end links. They are female pivot end links, so they drop straight down, as you can see there. They do give you quick release spring bars in there, which is also a huge bonus. So as far as that goes, they're very nicely done. The bracelet bottom edge here is pretty nicely rounded off, so it didn't dig into the wrist or anything like that. I'm not going to say it's not quite like San Martin level, but it is very nicely done, and it is push pins for sizing. Like I said earlier, I removed 2 for my 7.5 inch wrist. The clasp. So the clasp is my big issue with this. It is a very simple pressed outer shell, and it's kind of, I don't know, when I got this thing, I just immediately thought cheap. A watch like this deserves a nicer clasp than this. It only has 3 levels of micro adjust. Thankfully, I was able to get a good fit on this one. It's got the Spinnaker branding there on the flip over. So you open that up, and then you got 2 button pushers there. Fully milled on the inside, which is fine. It looks fine. You can see, I don't know if you guys can see it or not, maybe not. But the finishing inside isn't anything special. But again, not a huge deal. Tolerances on it, they're fine. So it does open and close pretty well. But there are times where I feel like this is like, you can see there, it's still latched, but you can see how big of a gap there is there. So yeah, I'm not happy with this. I am going to be looking to replace this clasp ASAP. Yeah, I just don't like it at all. It deserves a nicer clasp than this one. There's no sharp edges or anything on it, and it works fine. But yeah, it just deserves a nicer clasp than what they're providing. And for $450 US, I think you should be getting a nicer clasp than this one. So yeah, I'm not saying you need to throw on the fly adjustment on it, but a fully milled one would be appreciated. So yeah, that's my main complaint with the bracelet, is that the beads here being one solid link. It's not a huge deal. It doesn't make it uncomfortable or anything like that. So yeah, I am overall pretty happy with the bracelet. I like the way it looks on the bracelet. It is comfortable on the bracelet. Just that clasp is a little nasty in my opinion. So yeah, they should try and replace that. If they're going to continue production with this with maybe some more basic colors, I would put some money into the clasp there. Other than that, though, the bracelet's pretty good. And the nice thing is, they do provide you with quick release, like I said, and they do throw this strap in the box as well. So yeah, it's a nice Tropic rubber strap. Got a nice buckle here, which is signed. Yeah, this is a nice setup, very comfortable. I did have to kind of wrap these around each other and throw them in a little box just to get them to bend a little bit more. But now that they're like this, they're very nicely done. I've got no real complaints with them at all. They also have quick release, and they are also branded there with the Spinnaker. Yeah, good size, good materials. I've got no complaints. And the color is just like a perfect color match, which it should be. But yeah, nice extra bonus to have in the box. So yeah, pretty happy with these straps. So there you go, guys. That is the Spinnaker Fleuss 40, a new case size, a new case, a new design, and new colorways, commemorating the 145th anniversary of Mr. Fleuss, who was the creator of scuba. So obviously huge ties to a dive watch. And yeah, I think they just kind of nailed this one. I love this colorway. I like it more than I thought I was. I wasn't quite sure about any of the colors, but this one really does it for me. $450 US. So you're saving about $150 versus some other watches out there, or $100. And I think they cut the corners in the right spot. I do wish the bezel insert was sapphire. That's probably going to get scratched. The bracelet being one link, that saves some money. It's not a huge deal. The clasp, you can replace this clasp pretty easily. I'm going to do that. So yeah, I think you're getting a watch that is a perfect size, a nice thickness, a awesome movement, a beautiful design, and you know, really nice sapphire crystal, good lume, good bezel. It's kind of hard to beat a watch at this price with this movement, this set of specifications. Just go in knowing that they did cut a few corners here and there, but in my opinion, I think they cut the right ones. It doesn't really detract from the watch being really good and really fun to wear. So yeah, I think that's it for me. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.